What if I told you that the most powerful weapon used in one of the biggest political campaigns of the 21st century was actually just handed to the winners on a silver platter?
Right, by someone who is actively trying to stop them.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like the plot of some political thriller, but I mean, it is entirely true.
It is. And the craziest part is that it all centers around just one single word.
It really does. And I want you listening right now to just kind of ground yourself in where we are today, because it is Wednesday, June 10th, 2026, which means we are hovering right on the edge. I mean, just weeks away from the 10-year anniversary of the June 23, 2016 vote. The vote that basically completely altered the trajectory of British history.
A full decade. I mean, even though the official withdrawal from the European Union didn't actually take effect until January 2020, that summer day back in 2016 is really the anchor point.
Yeah, it was the moment.
Exactly. It's the moment the whole paradigm just completely shifted.
For sure. Now, just to be super clear about our mission for this deep dive today, we are looking at this fascinating retrospective on the origins of the word Brexit.
Right.
Because if you look around today, there is still, intense debate about whether leaving the EU was ultimately good or bad for the country. People are still arguing about travel realities, shifts in global finance, trade frameworks.
That's constantly.
Right. So we are absolutely not here to debate the policy outcomes or take a side on the politics at all.
No, not at all. We are looking strictly at the mechanics of the language here.
Yeah.
Because while the economic and political debates have evolved over the last 10 years, the one thing that has remained totally immovable is the buzzword itself. I mean, it defined a whole generation of geopolitics.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can really understand how this word came to define the UK's entire decade, we have to look at its DNA. Mechanically speaking, what kind of word even is this? Because it's not something that just naturally evolved over hundreds of years, right?
Yeah. No, it was engineered. Linguistically, it's called a portmanteau,
Right.
which is, an elegant French term for a pretty blunt practice where you just smash two or more words together to make a new one.
You just mash them up.
Exactly. You combine the sounds and the meanings all at once.
And we use them constantly without even realizing it. The source material points out some really great everyday examples, like if you sleep in on a Sunday, you don't eat breakfast, and then follow it up an hour later with lunch.
Right, you merge them.
Yeah, you merge the events, you merge the words, you eat brunch.
Or in entertainment,
Yeah.
A film that balances romance and comedy just becomes a rom-com.
Yeah, and pop culture relies on it heavily, too. I mean, think about early 2000s celebrity gossip. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez combining into Bennifer.
Oh, yeah, the classic.
It just seems like human nature to want to shorthand things like that. But why do we actually do it? Is it just laziness? We just want to save a few syllables?
Well, it's not really laziness. It's actually about cognitive efficiency. Our brains are just constantly looking for ways to process information faster.
Right.
So when you take two distinct concepts and fuse them into a portmanteau, you aren't just saving breath.
You're doing something more.
Yeah, you are creating a single, distinct, conceptual entity in the listener's mind. So Bennifer isn't two people anymore. It's just a single cultural phenomenon.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's like you're building a brand new box to put the idea in rather than trying to, hold two separate boxes at once.
Precisely. And what's so fascinating here is how that exact same pop culture naming convention, like the Bennifer mechanic, jumped over into the realm of incredibly dense, high-stakes international geopolitics.
Right.
Because the true origin of the Brexit portmanteau actually doesn't start in Britain at all. It starts in Greece.
Yes, let's rewind back to 2012. Greece is facing this severe sovereign debt crisis. It's causing massive turbulence across the Eurozone, and there is this very real, very complicated possibility that Greece might have to abandon the euro, or just leave the European Union altogether.
And this was a wildly complex situation. I mean, we're talking about international treaties, the European Central Bank, sovereign bond yields, austerity measures.
It's a total mess.
Yeah, a tangled web of economic policy that the average citizen understandably found really difficult to follow.
Right. So enter Willem Biter. He was the chief economist at the bank Citigroup at the time. And he needed a shorthand to describe this potential Greek departure in his economic forecasting reports.
Right.
So he took a cue from the brunch playbook. He combined the country's name, Greece, with the word exit, and he just coined the term Grexit.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see exactly why this specific portmanteau was so revolutionary.
How so?
Well, Willem Blyder took that terrifying, abstract economic crisis and just boiled it down to 2 syllables. Suddenly, it's digestible.
Yeah.
It takes this sprawling geopolitical process and makes it sound like a tangible item. A Grexit sounds like an event you can just put on a calendar.
I couldn't help but think of it like a linguistic virus when I was reading this.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because it starts in this highly specific technical environment, a banking forecast document, but it's just so perfectly engineered for transmission that it escapes the lab.
Exactly.
It enters the financial press, then the mainstream news, and suddenly it's crossing borders.
I really like the virus analogy, but let's look at the mechanism of why it's so transmissible.
Okay.
It's transmissible because it offers cognitive relief. When people are faced with overwhelming complexity, a catchy, simple word acts as an anchor. It gives the public a handle to grab onto in a storm of confusing information.
I get that. But does just any compression work? I mean, economists use acronyms all the time, right? They never catch on with the public.
Yeah.
So what made this one so different?
It's the visual and action-oriented nature of the word. An acronym like ECB or IMF is totally sterile. But Grexit contains the word exit.
Right, exit.
Yeah, exit is a door. It's a sign glowing in red above a frame. It implies movement, definitive action, like finding a way out of a burning building. It's inherently dramatic.
A way out of a burning building. That is exactly what you want when talking about a massive economic crisis. So we have the Grexit in 2012. The virus is out there. But how does it mutate to fit the United Kingdom? Because, I mean, the economic realities of Greece and Britain were vastly different at that time.
Oh, they were completely different.
Yeah.
But the linguistic utility of the word was just too good to ignore.
Right.
Just a few months after Grexit entered the lexicon, political strategists naturally took notice. And the framework of the word was adapted by a man named Peter Wilding.
Okay.
He was a British solicitor working on EU policy for the Conservative Party.
And this was during David Cameron's time as Prime Minister.
Correct. Wilding was analyzing the growing Eurosceptic sentiment within the UK. He saw the Grexit portmanteau and instantly recognized its power.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because of the actual context of how he deployed the word, Wilding wasn't trying to start a movement at all.
No, not at all.
He wasn't some Eurosceptic trying to rally the troops to leave. He was writing an article for a British think tank, and he used the word purely as a warning.
Yeah, his exact phrasing is really vital here. In his 2012 article, he wrote that unless Britain took a leading role in Europe, the portmanteau for Greek Euro exit might be followed by another sad word, Brexit.
Another sad word. I mean, he was literally trying to sound an alarm.
Exactly.
It wasn't a battle cry. It was a worst-case scenario that he was painting for his own party.
He was basically trying to use the ominous tone of the Greek crisis to wake up the British political establishment. He essentially said, if we aren't careful, what's happening to them will happen to us, and we'll have our own version of this terrible word.
Which makes the whole ensuing history just so darkly ironic.
Oh, incredibly.
He drops this word in a relatively obscure think tank piece.
Yeah.
Years pass, the word slowly enters the bloodstream of the culture. It gets picked up by politicians, by the press, by the Leave campaign. Fast forward to the end of 2016. The vote has happened. The Leave campaign has won. And Peter Wilding, the man who coined the term as a warning, gets a phone call.
A phone call from the Oxford English Dictionary.
I mean, imagine picking up the phone, and it's the dictionary calling to congratulate you. They had tracked the etymology of this inescapable buzzword all the way back to his 2012 article.
Right.
And they were calling to officially inform him that he was the creator of what they had just named the word of the year.
Now, for a writer, a policy analyst, anyone in that intellectual space, you'd assume that would be the absolute pinnacle of their career.
Oh, for sure.
Having the Oxford English Dictionary anoint you. Because the criteria for word of the year isn't just about usage volume. It's about a word that captures the ethos, the mood, or the preoccupations of that particular year. It is a massive acknowledgement of cultural impact.
Yeah, you'd think he'd be popping champagne. But when asked if he was thrilled with the honor, he was decidedly not.
No, he really wasn't.
He told interviewers he had completely forgotten he even used the word in the first place. It was just a throwaway sentence in a niche article.
And his frustration wasn't just about the surprise of it all. It brings us to the ultimate political irony at the core of our source material. Peter Wilding was a staunch Remainer.
He actively, passionately supported staying in the European Union. And his side ended up losing the very referendum that bore the name he casually invented.
Right. He actually wrote a follow-up article in 2018 where he spoke about this exact situation. And when explaining his utter lack of enthusiasm for the dictionary's honor, he was incredibly blunt.
What did he say?
He wrote, "No, not least because you can imagine being the leading Remainer before the referendum and gifting the Leavers their catchy trigger to unleash the demons that followed."
Gifting the Leavers their catchy trigger, that phrase is just stunning.
It really is.
He basically handed his political opponents their ultimate branding tool. And again, just to explicitly maintain our neutrality here, we are not validating his comment about demons following.
Right, of course.
The debate over the long-term benefits and drawbacks of the withdrawal is still very much alive today. We are strictly looking at the irony of a political strategist inadvertently supplying the opposing campaign with their most effective marketing weapon.
It is a profound irony. And frankly, it's an irony that perfectly mirrors the political arc of the Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron.
Oh man, the parallels there are incredible. I mean, we all know Cameron's famous gamble. Like Wilding, Cameron was a Remainer. He wanted to stay in the EU. But he made this strategic calculation to allow the referendum to happen, betting that the public would ultimately vote to remain and it would just, put the issue to bed forever.
Exactly. He thought he was controlling the narrative by allowing the vote. But the country voted to leave, and Cameron was forced to resign as a direct result of the very referendum he authorized.
So you have the Prime Minister who authorized the vote and the solicitor who named a movement. Both Remainers, both taking actions they thought would secure their position, and both inadvertently paving the exact road for the outcome they were trying to prevent.
This raises an important question, though, specifically about the mechanics of language in a political fight. Wilding called his creation a catchy trigger.
Right.
If we look at campaign strategy, does the side with the catchiest portmanteau have an inherent structural advantage?
I mean, I would argue yes. If you have a word that instantly conveys your entire complex platform in a memorable two-syllable package, you basically own the conversational real estate.
You dictate the terms.
Yeah, you dictate the terms of the debate because the media is forced to use your word just to talk about the issue.
It's all about cognitive fluency bias. In psychology, this is the proven tendency for people to believe that ideas which are easier to process are more likely to be true or valid.
Wow, really?
Yeah. If your political platform requires a 10-minute explanation of trade regulations, while your opponent's platform is just a punchy, memorable word that feels like an action, well, the opponent has a massive psychological advantage.
You own the real estate. And that actually brings us to the linguistic graveyard. Because as dominant as Brexit became, it wasn't the only word fighting for survival in the early days of the debate.
No, not at all. Language evolves through trial and error. The source notes that before Brexit fully solidified its grip on the culture, there was a competing alternative version floating around the press. Brexit. Yeah, spelled with an I instead of an E. Britain plus exit.
You exit! It just, it doesn't work. But wait, I have to challenge this a bit. Is it really just the spelling that made it fail? Or was it just that Brexit had already anchored itself because it was closer to Grexit, which people were already used to hearing?
Well, it's really a combination of both. First mover advantage is definitely real in linguistics. Brexit echoed the established Grexit more cleanly.
Right.
But there's also a phonetic reality to it. The short E sound in Brexit is slightly harsher, more decisive. The short I in Brexit sounds a bit thinner, almost trivial. It just didn't carry the required gravitas for a major constitutional change.
That makes sense. But the truly fascinating failure in this linguistic graveyard, the one that really highlights the power of a good portmanteau versus a terrible one, was the word the opposing campaign tried to use.
This is the best part.
Right. The Remainers realized that the Leave campaign was dominating the headlines with this snappy, virus-like word, so they tried to counter-program it with their own portmanteau.
They combined Britain and Remain, and they tried to push the word Remain.
I mean, I want to ask you listening right now, what stands out to you about that word? Say Brexit out loud. It's sharp. It's an action. Now say Remain.
It's awful.
It feels like your mouth is stumbling. Honestly, it just sounds like a typo, like someone accidentally hit the B key before typing the word Remain.
It completely lacked that cognitive efficiency we discussed earlier. But the failure of Remain actually goes deeper than just being clunky to pronounce.
How so?
Think about the underlying psychology of the root words. Exit is an active verb. It implies movement, change, taking control. Remain is a state of being, totally static. It implies just maintaining the status quo.
That is such a crucial point. Disruption favors snappy words. It is so much easier to market a revolution or a massive change with a sharp, active word than it is to market the idea of keeping things exactly the same.
Exactly.
Remain was trying to force a passive concept into an active linguistic mold, and the public just subconsciously rejected it.
And the failure of Remain allowed Brexit to remain the sole, unchallenged linguistic frame for the entire decade-long debate. The Leave campaign didn't just win the vote, they won the dictionary.
They really did. So what does this all mean for us right now, looking back from 2026? The withdrawal agreements are signed, the initial transition periods are in the rearview mirror as of early 2020. Has the word stopped mutating?
Language never stops moving, especially around issues that carry this much emotional weight. Now that a full decade has passed, and the public is living with the long-term realities of the decision, new portmanteaus have cropped up to describe the shifting national mood. For some voters who feel disappointment with how the policies actually played out, the source highlights two modern descendants of the original word, regret and regrexit.
Okay, regret is pretty clever. It's smooth. Britain and regret. I can totally see that catching on.
Yeah.
No, but regrexit. I have to push back on that one. That sounds like a terrible pharmaceutical drug. Ask your doctor if regrexit is right for you. Side effects may include political fatigue.
It certainly feels a bit forced, but its existence perfectly illustrates how deeply embedded that original exit suffix has become in the modern British consciousness.
Oh, that's true.
It's no longer just a word. It has become a fundamental grammatical building block. It's a tool the public uses to express a whole range of complicated national emotions.
It really is. And to think this entire linguistic universe traces its lineage back to Willem Boyder writing a financial forecast about Greek sovereign debt, and Peter Wilding trying to warn his colleagues about a sad word.
If we synthesize this entire journey, it truly is remarkable. We are looking at a word that began its life as a Greek economic moniker, mutated into a British political warning, was inadvertently gifted to the opposition who weaponized it as a brilliant marketing tool, and ultimately landed in the Oxford English Dictionary as the defining word of the year.
It's quite a resume for a word.
It really is. And regardless of where anyone stands on the politics or how British travel and trade evolve over the next 10 years, the name Brexit itself is locked in. It is utterly immovable.
It is carved into the history books forever. And, looking at the sheer undeniable power that one word wielded over a nation's destiny, it leaves me with a thought I really can't quite shake.
What's that?
Well, we've spent this whole time talking about how a portmanteau makes things digestible, right?
Yeah.
How it creates cognitive efficiency. But if giving a highly complex, multi-layered geopolitical withdrawal a simple two-syllable name completely changes how the public interacts with the idea, does simplifying the language inherently oversimplify the reality of the policy?
Oh, wow.
Like when we condense massive generation-defining historical movements into a single catchy buzzword just because our brains like it, do we inevitably lose our grasp on the complicated, messy details that actually matter?
That is the ultimate danger of the catchy trigger. It might be perfectly engineered to win a campaign, but it might just be too simple to help us truly understand the consequences.
Something to mull over the next time you hear a brand new buzzword taking over your newsfeed. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning the words you use, keep looking for the history hiding in plain sight, and we will catch you next time.